those of you watching that are thinking about starting a flight school, your target audience is business owners that are trying to buy back their time, regional business owners that are driving 3-4 hours, 4-hour legs to get somewhere. That is the key. Those are the people that have the money, maybe not all the time, but they've got the money to do it. And that's who you need to start with first.
Good afternoon from Right Rotor Marketing Studio in St. Louis, Missouri. This is the Aviation Business Podcast, and my name is Dan Gill. I'm really excited about our guest today. His name is Lute. He runs a flying school out of St. Joseph, Missouri. But in tradition of our founder, Tim, we're going to let Tim on. We're going to let Lute on to introduce himself. So without further ado, Lute.
Hey, good afternoon. Is it afternoon? It is. Lute Atieh here. I live in St. Joseph, Missouri, Northwest Missouri, and our flight schools are predominantly in the Midwest. 2 in Missouri, 3 in Missouri, and 1 in Iowa.
Yeah. So, thanks for the short introduction because we got a lot to talk about today. Lute and I talked this morning in terms of a pre-talk for today, and I just want to make sure that he was fine with me bringing him up this way. We don't have many people from the future, but I really believe, Lute, you're kind of from the future. He's kind of got an interesting story. We want to get into it, but I wanted his permission to bring this up. We had cigars at his remote office, your remote office back in February when it was cold and blowing 30.
I'm here now, in fact.
Right. But yet, I just wanted to get his permission to bring this up, that his whole flight school happened kind of by accident. You were driving and you almost got in an accident on the way back from, I don't know, tell the story.
Yeah, I was driving to the capital, Jefferson City, Missouri, every month for a meeting. And, it's a 3.5 hour drive each way. I don't know what month it was, but I was on my way back and, I may have actually clipped this deer, but I mean, it was close, if not. And the ground was a little wet and it was a little slick out, and I nearly ended up off this bank type of thing. And just luckily that didn't happen. I thought to myself, because I try to do it in one day. I was a little younger, a little more aggressive, no kids. I was like, I'll get up early, I'll get down there, I'll do the meeting, and I'll hit the road and I'll get home when it's dark. And of course I was trying to save money as well, but
right.
And then I looked into flying. I was like, well, what would it cost someone to give me a ride? And of course that was cost prohibitive. And then whoever I was talking to said, you ought to just consider learning to fly and take yourself. I said, oh, that's interesting. And that was 15, 16, 17 years ago. And here we are.
Right. So you're kind of in the cigar shop that you have as a remote office, and I've been there, and we have it on video, and we'll show a little bit of it later. But you're kind of in your remote office, and you're smoking your cigar, and you might be drinking whiskey. Things happen when you drink whiskey, and you're like, "Could I walk us through? You almost hit a deer. You're on the side of the road. You're sitting here in your remote office smoking a cigar, and you've got your phone in front of you, and you're like, maybe I could make a go of this."
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. I pulled over just to make sure I didn't break anything or pop a tire. And several days after that, I'm hanging out with some friends, a few of which that also traveled, and we were trying to come up with a better way. And so really, I just thought to myself, I'm tired of driving, and that wasn't the only trip I had to do in a month. I was on the road a lot, and of course, I had never been in a small plane at this point, and I had no idea how much fun it was going to be and how exciting it was, and that it would turn into a hobby and a business. Right. And who knew? But just looking for, just like trying to solve a problem. That's really that's essentially what I do every day. Trying to solve a problem led to all of this, which is really, really interesting. But that's kind of how I run my businesses. You try to solve a problem, try to do it well, and try to do it better than anybody else. And that's usually how it goes.
Yeah. So I want to kind of step through this and kind of take it slow. But then again, I mean, we talked this morning and there was this perception you had that, you couldn't fly, and then you get in the plane and then, so tell us, what was your discovery flight like, your first couple hours flying?
Yeah, I mean, it was with a fairly young guy who was kind of working his way up to get to the airlines, and he was an ordinary guy, nothing wildly impressive. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, this is the guy showing me how to fly an airplane. And so I said to myself, if he can do it, I can probably figure it out. And so it was a good experience. I did a few more discovery flights, and then, all in, it took me maybe 5 years to finally get my private certificate. And, because I was young, I worked a lot, I was broke a lot. And anytime I had a little bit of extra money or time, I'd go spend it at the airport. And so over time, I would just keep doing that, mostly for fun. And then finally, one winter, it was, I think, I don't know, maybe it was 2011 or 12. I finally had a little bit of time and money. And I said to myself, now is the time. And so it took me about 4 months of every single week flying, typically on the weekends, studying every night, watching videos. And my goal was to finish it before my birthday that year. And I finally did. But it took years. 5 years.
After 5 years, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, you said something this morning that kind of hit me, because I'm in the situation where I'm all but exams. I'm 50 or so hours in, and I've been really scared to take the written exam because of, everything you hear. And then after the written exam, it's based on, if you get 90%, your oil is going to be 20 minutes or an hour, or maybe 30 minutes. And then if you get a 70%, which is probably my benchmark, probably where I'm heading, Lute, I'm going to be sitting with the DPE for a fantastic, incredibly enjoyable 3 hours and change. Maybe there's a meal in there somewhere. I don't know. Right. So talk to me about, we talked this morning and you said something about it takes how long it takes, Yeah. Don't, that's the way I looked at it, is if I put a deadline on myself and I miss it, I'm going to be upset, discouraged, whatever. Right. And so I took the approach of, and maybe it was advice from a few other people that I'm regurgitating. I think it was. I said, you know what, just start flying. You don't have to be learning per se. Just as often as you can, just get in the airplane with an instructor and go. And I tell this to parents all the time. They'll call up and they've got like a 13-year-old ready to fly. I was like, you can't. Right. If you truly start this early, you will lose them when it's actually time to solo. And so what I tell the parents is this: is like, listen, just every month, get a discovery flight, right? Come join the group ground schools. Make sure they go to all the airport events. Get them to Oshkosh, once or twice every other year, whatever. And that's really the message here, because flying is difficult. It is expensive. But if you really have a dream for it, just keep yourself engaged. And so over the years of just going out and maybe doing a lesson here and a lesson there and watching YouTube videos and going through every ground school website on earth just to find the one I really liked, I probably spent 2 or 3x the amount of dollars the average student will. But you know what? I did it at my pace. I did it when I could. And now I fly like 100 hours a year. So finally got to the point to where I can really just fly every month. But I would just tell people, if you're not going to do this for a career, then just relax. Do it when you can. You'll find the money, you'll find the time if you really have an interest in it. But just, little bits, keep after it is kind of the way I did it. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll get to your serious habit in a minute, and you gave me permission to fully get into that, and we're going to get into that. Trust me. And you're not here, so I can say whatever I want, which is great. I love that. But I know my shoulder's ready for you when we meet again, and it's going to be ready. I'm sure I'm going to be like, Dan, what did you say? So let's fast forward to you're back at the cigar bar, you're having yourself a whiskey, and you're like, maybe I should start a flight school. Like, that's probably not the best thing to do after you've been out, like, with your
Yeah.
cigars, but yet, like, walk us through the process of kind of making that call.
It was difficult. In addition to my own time and schedule and money, it was difficult for me to learn just because we didn't have a flight school in our town. It was, FBO.
Like, for our viewers that don't know, where are you based again?
St. Joseph, Missouri. It's KSTJ. It's a medium-sized town. We're 70,000-ish, 75,000 people. And so not necessarily large enough for a proper flight school. Plenty in Kansas City nearby, but that's kind of it's an hour away. And so, doesn't make incredible financial sense for it to be its own business. And so that's, but then again, that's what I was told.
Right.
I said, why don't we have a flight school? There's not enough traffic. There's not enough this and that. I was like, all right, well, so after, and over the years, I have been involved in, Young Eagle flights, and I'm on the air show planning committee. And so I've become hey, call Lute, and he probably knows, so after every Young Eagles flight, it was, hey, where can my kid learn to fly? I was like, you just kind of figure it out, call, find an instructor, find a plane, and then it'll maybe sort itself out. I had a difficult time. The plane I was learning in was down a lot, and then one day it just disappeared. It never came out of annual, and so I had to switch. No, I ended up spending quite a bit of time in an Aero after that, which was really interesting. But learning to fly in an Aero, complex, high horsepower, retractable aircraft, it was like my last 10 or 15 hours was in that plane, and I think I did my check ride at like 68 hours or something.
Okay.
All in. But anyways, at this point, all these years later, I had finally determined that there's probably enough business in this area if it was marketed properly, and if there were great airplanes, consistent airplanes, instructors that were available and on staff and all that. So I called several friends that also have the aviation bug, and I said, listen, let's buy a new airplane. And if this doesn't go well, we will still have a new airplane we could share. And so that was a pretty easy sale, right? And so we just did it. We just went for it. And at the end of the day, we could still fly a cool airplane that we had access to. And at this point, I had a 172. And so I convinced the group to buy a TAA, which is what they call a technologically advanced aircraft, really designed for training, that had beautiful avionics, brand new. And if we had a new plane that looked cool, was efficient, and made parents comfortable, I think we could get not just guys like me who want to get their license, but we could get a lot of younger high school age kids.
Right.
And that was the gamble, because there's not a bunch of guys like me signing up to get their license around here, their certificate. So the gamble worked. More than half of our students are in high school right now, and it's parents helping, financially to get them through school.
And how many students do you guys have right now?
I'd say that fly on a regular basis somewhere between 23 and 30 that fly every month.
Yeah.
We have two aircrafts, the Sling I mentioned, and then we have a 172. Yeah. And I had spent a few years prior to launching this thinking about it and going to Oshkosh and talking to other flight school owners and talking to aircraft manufacturers. And at the end of the day, it was just a gamble of, listen, if this doesn't go well, we at least still have an aircraft that we will fly. And so that was...
Yeah, so here's a picture of the Sling over here on the broadcast.
Yeah, it's a great plane. You can...
So yeah, you and I talked about this earlier today. I had never flown anything else besides a Cessna, and then our company is Cherokee 140, I believe, or 160. Mm-hmm. And they both fly fairly similar. The Cessna has a lot of... everyone out there watching this is probably flown a Cessna before. So there's a lot of wiggle room in the
Yeah.
controls, especially when you're
Yeah.
flying slow. And then last week I got to fly in a long easy, which
Yeah.
is probably, I mean, it's before light sport, so it's experimental, but at the same time, if it was manufactured today, it would probably fall under light sport. And the
I think
controls
so.
were incredibly tight. So you and I talked this morning about you and I have gone from Cessnas to light sport planes like this, but then how, like, describe what it's like for a student, describe what it's like for you to go from a Cessna to this sling, and then for a student to go from the sling to a Cessna.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically trading out a 1980s station wagon for a 911 is how I can describe it. It's so precise and so sensitive that I'm of the opinion if you can learn to fly in a light sport like that and land in a light sport, you can land anything because a 172 is super forgiving, and that sling is very, very tight is the word to use, and every little movement you can feel, which is great. It does make you a better pilot.
It's not far. Like when I was flying last week,
it's this much.
It's like tiny.
Yeah. It's tiny. A little boring at times because you're literally your travel is like 2 inches in any direction on the stick, but I enjoyed it. It made me a lot better of a pilot, and it prepared me for what I'll call stick flying in my plane now, which came later. It's a little more precise and a little less just pull the power back and slop it in there,
Right. Yeah. I had this perception before I flew in the Long Easy last week and before we talked today that these planes would be, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, I say flying is flying. I fly remote control gliders, and we have people that fly hand launch planes. And then you go out to the big flying field and you see people fly, TBMs, and they fly, even Cirrus, they fly a variety of different planes out there. And yet flying is flying, but no. Flying is not flying. If you say that driving is like driving a Dodge Caravan versus driving a Ferrari, driving isn't the same. It's a spectrum. And so
it is. Yeah.
I was thinking it'd be easier to fly a light sport, but in a lot of regards, as you're saying, and I found it last week, it's a lot harder because of the precision.
Yeah, it is harder. It is harder. There's it's a lighter aircraft, so it gets pushed around a bit, but it is more precise. You have to be a little more careful, but it is a lot more fun. I enjoy it. You can get a lot more aircraft for the money, and they're typically more efficient. It's great. I love having it as part of the fleet. We still want a little bit of everything. You need to learn to fly a lot of things, but it is a great aircraft to learn to fly in.
Yeah, you were saying this morning that students will use this plane, the sling, until they have to do instrument, but then you can't really use light sport, even in a Mosaic, in terms of an instrument, like a pure instrument training. So at that point, they shift to the 172, right?
Yeah, we simulate instrument in it. We do start instrument training in it, but ultimately we switch students to the 172, which is good because now that they're pilots, they need something to fly and rent, and you can rent 172s all day long everywhere. And so we transition them to that aircraft. That gives them another aircraft type that teaches them how to follow checklists when you're in a new aircraft, how to get comfortable, how to get familiar. And so if you think about the journey of a GA pilot or even someone going into it as a career, we are forcing our students to not be too comfortable with their aircraft by switching an aircraft and changing it up a little bit. And so that's all part of the journey.
Yeah, so the school I was flying at before, we had just 172s, but then after flying the Long Easy, it would be nice if you learn that flying isn't flying. Flying is a spectrum. So you'd fly sometime in a 172, or you'd fly sometime, and then you'd fly sometime in a different plane.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if there was a lot more flight training that had that kind of flexibility bouncing back and forth. I'm going to stop here and give us a little commercial for the podcast, just in case someone just came in. You're listening to the Aviation Business Podcast. My name is Dan Gill. I'm not Tim Jedrick, but I'm one of the hosts of the show. We interview and we talk about aviation here. We're a marketing company based in St. Louis, helping flight schools grow. FlyTech is one of those, actually. So we'd like to talk aviation here. So yeah, and back to Lute, our guest. And in the meantime, if anyone watching the show has any questions, we do have the ability to take questions here in the studio in St. Louis. So you started out 3 years ago with 2 planes and then your personal plane. And then when we met, you had 2 planes in your personal plane. And then now all of a sudden, talk about what happened between February and now.
Yeah, no. So when we started, I still had my 172. I sold that so we could buy this sling. So we started out with just the sling. And we did that for a while, almost a full year. And then we quickly, we were putting 1,000 hours on that thing in 12 months. Wow. That's how quickly the training picked up in our community. So then we got the 172 and now it's full as well.
You said
and then after
schedule?
That, it's
both are with 172.
Yeah, both are full now. It took the 172 probably 6-7 months to catch up. Because now we're getting people who already have their certificate and want to get their instrument, or started in a 172, want to stay in a 172, which is totally fine. So both planes are flying pretty regularly and are pretty close to full, but there's still a little room on the 172. So we ran that, and the goal with my group of friends and investors is that we're going to try to expand, right? So we looked at a school in Indiana, we looked at a school in Kansas. And then a school in Kansas City popped up that it's ATD popped up for sale. And that's right down the street. It's perfect. I never imagined one so close would be for sale. That's this well-established 30-year history. Mm-hmm. And of course, we immediately said, this is it. This is our neighbor. We already know the place. I took my written exam at ATD. Because they have a testing center. I did my medical there because there's a doctor upstairs. And so I'd already known and been familiar with it. And so anyways, long story short, they also have a charter operation, which made it a no-brainer.
Sure.
But long story short, we met the owners and we had similar mindsets, similar approaches, similar values. And that was important to them because, you can imagine when schools go up for sale, you've got everybody from local small business guys like me all the way to VC and corporations. And VCs and corporations aren't always employee friendly when it comes to acquisitions, right? So I think one of the reasons they went with us is just because we are of a local mindset. And yes, we are business people. The goal here is to make money. But this is not a short-term ROI for us. This is a long-term goal. And so we have a 7 to 10-year outlook, which is a lot different than a company that comes in with a 3 to 5 year outlook. And the decisions you make that drive a 3 to 5 year outlook versus a 7 to 10 year outlook, where, this is a longer-term thing for us, can make or break a company and the culture and the reputation. And so I think that's important.
Yeah, there was a couple things that kind of stood out to me when we talked this morning. First of all, I asked for a ride. We'll get into that. I hope you guys can give me a ride. Just fly a jet over here. I'm not looking for a long thing. Just let's just do a couple laps in the pattern at Lambert here. As long as they can let us do that. And we'll just find a quiet evening. It doesn't have to be busy, just a quiet time. And then actually, let's address that first. Why can't you just fly a plane over here and fly me around the pattern? If you guys are in town.
The charter aircrafts are quite busy. It is, private aviation. In Kansas City.
So why would they be busy in Kansas City right now?
Yeah, of course, World Cup. I mean, they're moving, but charter in general has been going up year over year, 10, 12, 15, 17%, for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And you can see why, if you're a business and you've got salespeople on the road and you deal with the layovers, the canceled flights, and that can get troubling. when you're working on big deals and companies, or if you can get in the door at a company to pitch something, you want to make sure you're there to do what you need to do and get out.
Right.
And missing flights and having flights be canceled is not ideal. And so you see business relying more on private aviation, but they are busy. These planes are in the air every week, almost every day of the week.
So who have you been flying? Can you tell me?
Unfortunately cannot, but I will tell you, there's a lot of spouses of players that are in town to support their, spouse and their kids, and they're running around to the different games and running around to do little things in the U.S. while they're here visiting.
Wow.
It's just very, very cool to see. Of course, we don't stand around and meet these people either. I mean, you fly private for a reason. And so the goal is to get people in and out anonymously, quietly, without being disturbed. And not even I go into the hangar and impose a handshake or a picture or a signature.
Yeah. The plane comes up. The car comes up.
That's it.
Car goes away. The plane goes somewhere else to pick someone else up.
That is it.
Yeah. I think you told me, well, if you drop by Kansas City at some point with a sleeping bag and some food, we might be able to take you up on a ferry flight, but we're going to have to drop you someplace.
Yeah, an empty leg, maybe, but you'll be left somewhere. You'll have to get home.
Right. So something you said, and I kind of want to get into the future part of this. You said that you found solutions to this company that's been around for a long time that had never been tried before. And that's kind of what, that's called innovation, but innovation in a charter, so you buy a business and then you find out ways to innovate. Can you talk about maybe, I don't know if you want to talk about the details in this, or you want to talk about, I guess we could bring that into a larger topic, which we can open right now. It's the changing face of aviation. We'll start that right now, but kind of talk about that in terms of the charter, and then we'll talk about kind of the future part of aviation.
Yeah. You see a lot of original aviation founders approaching retirement or retiring, right? And so I think now is really it's an interesting time in aviation, because you see kind of the new group getting in. You see companies changing. You see, marketing companies that are specialized to aviation. There's software now, and so for me and our group of investors, we are just really excited about challenging kind of the norms and challenging what everybody thinks and understands about aviation, and to fail quickly is the way I like to put it. Right? Is let's try something, let's see if it'll work, and let's crush it immediately, or let's chase this down to see if there's any validity here. And we want to be careful not to try new things just to try new things, because that can get expensive. But I mean, with tools today, you can really prove out a business model in a very short amount of time to determine if it's worth throwing real money at it, right? And you can lower your risk by experimenting in a more thoughtful way. So I think, and I'm sure other people have said this over the years, but I do believe we are at a pretty pivotal point in aviation. I think a lot of industries, frankly, but aviation specifically, where there's a lot of innovation coming and pushing on the regs and pushing on the norms and some of the old ways that things have been done. I know for sure, we all know that the regulators are not going to be able to keep up with technology. And so that is our barrier, right, is the regs. But you've got Mosaic. Those regs are changing to support these newer aircrafts. You obviously have the eVTOL stuff and the drones and all these things that are happening. But
well, we mentioned. Yeah, I'm going to stop you right here. We mentioned we talked about the classic planes that are up in the air today. We talked about the Cessnas, the Pipers. I mean, those are probably by numbers the largest fleets, with the exception of probably Cirrus and the SR-20, SR-22 fleet. But then there's this kind of rumor that you hear around, and the rumor is the businesses, the legacy businesses, I'll call it Cessna, that they're not making new planes. What they do is they sell parts, and they sell parts for more and more money every year.
Yeah.
So that has a huge increase in costs when it comes to just flying, let alone a flight school. So can you talk about that kind of changing landscape of the training plane, and then kind of how you see that in the future, that training plane changing?
Yeah, I think for existing operators, you're stuck in the traditional planes because your mechanics are trained, your pilots are comfortable, your instructors are comfortable, so you're there. But as we see these newer aircrafts coming out, even Diamond, Diamond's got some great training aircrafts. Obviously, we have a Sling in our fleet, and our other flight schools use it, predominantly Archers, and so even replacement new aircrafts are $600,000-$700,000 for the same 172 that I had. That was a 78 that I paid like $38,000 for. And so if you're going to spend that in my opinion, if you're going to spend that kind of money on a new trainer, then maybe we start looking at some of these alternatives, these newer aircrafts, these certified light sports, things that are a little bit lower cost that you can get creative with. But yeah, the parts game essentially is where it's at. And like automotive, as the FAA starts to allow third-party parts and creating some of your own parts and 3D printing things and STCs and modifications, without those, nobody can afford to learn to fly. Nobody can afford to fly, period.
Right.
I mean, I just paid. The insurance is out of control.
Yeah, I mean, insurance too.
I just paid $500 for a used gauge that just tells me how many amps I'm drawing because it's certified.
Right.
And it's an analog used gauge. It's 15 years old. And, in vehicles, it's a different story. You can go right to AutoZone and pick one up for $30-$40, really nice ones. But at some point, eventually, we're going to start to see these things relax, but it's going to be a while. And that's kind of what drives it.
Yeah, I joked this morning, and we brought up the Diamond. We talked about the Diamond, and let me see it. So I sent you a YouTube video, and the YouTube video is the kind of one of the coolest planes I can think of, and it's the Globe Swift. Yeah. There's this golden time of aviation, and it wasn't the 20s or 30s. It was 1946. Like, that was the year. That was the golden time of aviation. It's when you had all the pilots coming back from World War II, and there was no interstate highway system. And so there was this instant market of people that had money. They already had the certificate. All they had to do is buy a plane with some of the money that they were kind of bringing back from the war, or they were starting to make. And during that 1 year, you had, here it is, the amazing plane. They talked about it as the YouTube video says it's kind of like, a P-51 for the masses. They didn't put the biggest engine in it, which was kind of their fault. And they made a couple technical mistakes, the YouTube video says. But yet it had this incredible opportunity where they sold like $1 million of planes in 1946. And I have no idea how many planes that is, but that's a lot of planes. But yet 1947, and that changed altogether. So in a sense, we're flying with that same design that comes out of the 1940s. It's the same engine, or it's one of 3 engines that are out there. And when you have these legacy companies with the legacy parts and the legacy engines, there has been very little innovation in GA. And so my joking to you was, I'll sell you my 2017 Honda Civic, and you can use the engine and put it in something because it's computer controlled. And so you were like, but we have that. I'm like, well, what do you mean? And you're saying you have a computer controlled FADEC and the Sling.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, you students need to learn how to fly with carb heat and be able to lean a mixture. Totally agree. Mm-hmm. But when you first start flying and you're trying to figure all that out, or when you're over that and you're just trying to enjoy flying, having automation is really, really nice. and it creates a more efficient aircraft, and your engines can run longer and all that stuff. But yeah, you're right. We're still operating on old tech, and of course we will be for a while. But you start to see it now. We've got G3Xs and G1000s and 750s going into these airplanes. I mean, these are great avionics, and it really, really, really nice. I mean, our training planes have better avionics than my personal plane in a lot of respects.
Let me stop you right there. We've got someone who's asking if this is really live. I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure.
Tell me to hold up a number and I'll do it. Yeah, here we go.
Here we go.
What is it?
They also had a question. They had a question here. I'd like to start a flight school. I have a plane, and I have some, and I want to get some students. How does this work?
If you are not already hosting young eagles in your area, your airport, start there. So become a chapter. If you're not, get a couple pilots, start a Facebook group, start getting people excited and together about this. Maybe host an informational out at the airport, talk to your community, your city, your airport manager. You got to start building all this momentum before you do that. You want a list of people that have said, yes, we would do it, or we can do it, and we will do it. And I spent, I don't know, maybe 6-7 months generating hype around the idea of this happening, just to make sure I wasn't crazy and I wasn't like drinking my own Kool-Aid. Right. But I would just get everybody you can think of together that is either in aviation, loves aviation, interested in it, spend a few bucks on Facebook, start talking to the local news and media. If you look at St. Joe and flight school, I took a reporter up in my Cessna, and we talked about the idea of formalizing flight training here. And that article started what I will call the wave that made me more comfortable and confident in spending the money. But if you've already got a plane and you're already got an instructor, your risk really isn't much. It's setting up a website, some social media ads, a scheduling software, and marketing is key. Driving the message is key. And do you're going to have to do a lot of free flights.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk to my producer. Could you put up the next comment?
Okay, good. Listen, so what to grow? If you've not yet maxed out your first plane schedule, then it's marketing, right? It's exposure, it's marketing, it's generating. Do some ground schools, do some free stuff, get people out to the airport. Is what I would recommend. And we started early on donating rides to local nonprofits, like donating Discovery flights as their way to raise money. So you donate a Discovery flight, they auction it at their annual fundraiser. That gets the word out. I like free advertising as much as I enjoy what Rudder does for us. We didn't start there. We went 7, 8, 9 months by ourselves, running our own Facebook ads, talking to the news, doing charity rides, donating Discovery flights, doing ground school and informational sessions. A lot of this was for free. It was just a lot of time.
Let me stop you right there. So one of my 7th grade teachers said, when people raise their hands, they go, "Oh, the natives are restless. Here we go." So we kind of riled some people up. Can you, Tom has a question here. What do you consider a fully utilized aircraft?
Me?
Yeah. Like in terms of your flight school.
I would say this is going to vary, but if you're flying 40 to 50 hours per month on an aircraft, that may not be fully utilized, but in my business plan, that is a healthy schedule. And how I determine that is when it goes into maintenance, like how many people are pissed. Right? That's how you know you've got a utilized schedule. Right. But the realistic number from a business plan standpoint is between, I'd say 40, 45. That's a healthy utilized aircraft per 7 days, throughout the month.
So you said like that's 40 hours per 7 days. Sorry.
I'm sorry. No, 40 hours per month and back per month into what that looks like in a week. And that's how I do it. 50 hours a month is an aggressive schedule.
So now we have another comment. We're going to have comments here, which is great. Oh, so that is very cool. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be condescending.
Yeah.
Here we go. We can read. I'll read it here. Oh, that's very cool. That is a good
Yeah.
idea. There's a price range. Uh, a price range I should save up for marketing. I didn't get the last part here.
It's
There
a
we
great
go.
question. I have an opinion on that too. Marketing going. Yeah. So I'll use my area. So I'm in kind of this vacant 40-50 mile range of like no competitors other than
Great.
CFIs with airplanes and FBOs with airplanes. Kansas City is my next big. So in my area, since I'm not really competing against anybody, I'm competing against no action. I'm competing against educating people that this is a career option. I spent a lot of time going to career days in the local school district, and a lot of time educating people that had never thought about aviation as a possible career. And so in my area, you can get away with spending $1,000 to $2,000 a month and just really annihilate the region, if you will, in exposure. Start small. Start on Facebook. Start on boosting things. That's the really cheap way. You could spend $100 to $200 a month till you ramp up, and as you start to see that happening, then you start hiring someone, to do some Google ads, which is really where you get traction. And you should do regular blog posting, and you should do some YouTube videos, all the things you can do by yourself just to get exposure. But you could start at $200 a month to $2,000 a month is the range, but just ease into it over time. But you got to remain consistent. We fluctuate pretty regularly between $1,000 and $2,500 a month for this market.
Yeah. So I'm going to put in here, hey, Raul, can you put that back up again? So if you look us up, Bright Rudder Marketing, I think it's brightruddermarketing.com, you can schedule a free time to meet with us, and we help, we help Lute with his business, and then you can schedule a free call with us. Our services aren't for everyone. Our services kind of start at a particular dollar amount and go up from there. So it's not from everyone, but it's a place to start. You could start that, and then you could kind of go up from there. So one of the questions that's kind of coming up is a kind of a subtopic that you and I talked about this morning. There's a lot of flight schools around. People will find a hobby or something they enjoy, a subject matter they enjoy, and they'll say, hey, that would be really cool to start a business from that. Whereas you kind of come from the entrepreneur side and you're like, is this going to be profitable? Can we make this profitable? And one of the things that you said was kind of the same thing. It's like, even if you're an entrepreneur and you find something that you believe is going to be profitable, it's not something that you could probably do on your own. So if you're a flight school and you're having trouble with marketing, or you're having trouble with this, I mean, like we talked about this before, like bring other people on your team. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, I have partners, and that's a very intentional decision. I have like 4 partners, and every person has a skill set amongst themselves. Mine is sales and marketing and maybe planning. I have a finance guy. That's his specialty. There's a CFI who's one of our partners. And then those are the primary 3. So find some partners, because it's fun, but when it's all your problem, it takes the fun out real fast.
Right.
And so you can still have partners and still do what you want to do, but it's nice to have partners. And I would highly recommend finding some people that are of similar mindset, that have a different skill set than you do as you do this.
So there's another comment here. That's a good insight. It's probably like all of them. He'd probably just like, in general, you guys have good insights. Here we go. Okay, that's a good insight. I don't know how much management costs, or if I wanted, and if there's something you should outsource or not.
Yeah, I mean, you should, when you're small and just starting out like I did, here's how I was able to justify outsourcing. I started doing it myself. I learned, I figured it out. And I did it. And when I saw it start to work, and I could reasonably see that it would compute into an ROI, I was like, oh, okay, this is it. Now I can actually justify spending the money, essentially before it's made, spending a little bit of money on dedicating it to marketing. And so that's what you'd have to do. And again, I think in general, we spend about 10% of our revenue, 7 to 10% of our revenue on what I'll call outbound promotion. And that's across Facebook, Google. Oh, I guess that's pretty much it. It's Facebook and Google, mostly Google.
Right. And then now we're helping with you. And I worked really on the broadcast and video production side, so I don't get to hear those conversations with our operations team or ops team. When we were meeting, you said that you have this club mentality that there's someone usually at the hangar. So like, was it on Saturdays or it's Saturdays or one day a week, one evening a week or so that you have this kind of ongoing ground school that happens? Can you talk about the club atmosphere that you guys do at FlyTech?
Yeah, so like right now, every Tuesday, there is an instructor doing ground school and they're just rotating topics, right? And then once a month, we try to do a hangar hangout where we discuss a topic, we drink coffee, we eat donuts, and we try to correspond that with events like what we're looking at here. We had the women's air race classic.
Oh, right.
And we were fortunate enough to be a stop for that, and that was fantastic. We brought out the stole competition to our airport, and that's another great thing to do. And so you've got to just start doing there's the hangar. You got to start just doing these monthly hangouts, and there's another one, limited ground school. And so we don't do them religiously every single week or every single month. We'll do little series and packs of things, 4 and 5 things. Here's a bunch of kids that made paper airplanes, and this is the stole competition you're looking at. And the stole competition is great because it was largely supported and funded by community sponsors. And so I'll tell you this, as a small business owner and anything to do with airplanes, it's easy to get free earned media. So you just call around to the local news agencies, radios, newspaper, TV, whatever you have, become friends with these reporters, and it becomes pretty easy to get them to cover something you're doing or talking about at the airport, in particular if it's free or low cost or proceeds go to a local nonprofit. So I would encourage you heavily to dedicate quite a bit of time giving back to your community in exchange for some exposure. And if you're not very good on camera, find somebody who is, and just start posting videos about what you do in your community.
So we have another question here from Ryder. On the higher end, it's still good on the pricing. I was thinking a higher number. Is there a typical number of students a month? It's seasonal, right? I'm in the Midwest, so I will see a lot of interest. Actually, there's 2 things I've noticed. We'll see a pretty high interest around Christmas to buy discovery flights or to buy prepaid training cards, if you will, like gift certificates. And so I would spend some time advertising gift cards for flight training. And I usually see this from spouses or parents, usually spouses, wanting to buy a gift card, $500, $1,000, whatever, to just finally nudge their spouse to do what they wanted to do already, right? So that's a good thing in the winter. And then I see in the spring coming into May, June, I see a lot more interest. And so I would recommend you try to keep your marketing consistent throughout the year and not let it fluctuate. That way, you're reaching people in the winter and then you keep at them as they go into the spring. It takes a lot of touch points, and you really have to advertise the flexibility and the convenience. Because when people think about flight school in their 40s, they're intimidated by the classroom environment and what they sometimes see on the internet. And that's just not the case, as as everybody watching this knows. It depends on where you go. And so the flexibility, celebrating the fact that it took me 5 years to get my license. Right.
It doesn't have to, but it did. And that's okay. So just flexibility at your own time, at your own budget is how I promote in this area, in this community, and that seems to resonate. I only have a handful of students that are aggressively pursuing commercial in this market. I'll say a third of them are. The rest are I'm going to get my sport, I'm going to get my private, and I'm going to see what happens after that. Maybe I'll fly for a career, maybe I won't. And we just got to keep the messaging neutral, because in bigger communities, it's just constantly, finish fast, get your commercial, go to the airline. It's just not, it's not going to work for the majority of your flyers. Those of you watching that are thinking about starting a flight school, your target audience is business owners that are trying to buy back their time, regional business owners that are driving 3-4 hours, 4-hour legs to get somewhere. That is the key. Those are the people that have the money, maybe not all the time, but they've got the money to do it. And that's who you need to start with first.
Now, on that topic, Blanc Illyrio, which you watch his videos, and every time I talk about Blanc Illyrio, I have to kind of call him out and say, I'd love to be on your video, but yet no one wants to be on your video. For those of you who don't know, Blanc Illyrio is a 777 captain, and he's old school. He's like a soon to retire baby boomer. And if you get on his channel, chances are you'll be watching it from heaven or hell, because you're not around anymore. He talks about accident investigations. And one of the things he brings up is, it's fine to be a business owner or a family and want to fly your family around or want to fly to business events. However, know when to say when, know when your skills top out, and you should kind of
100%. And I've got a great example of that. When I started flying, I was flying mostly so I could cart myself around for work. And on a regular basis, in fact, one of my business partners in FlyTech and ATD, I met because I asked him to be my safety pilot on a trip that I wasn't entirely comfortable going into this super busy airport. And he was a CFI and a commercial pilot. He said, sure. And so as a business owner, what I would say is no shame in tagging and bringing a CFI with you to go on a trip, turn it into training, because, I forget who says it, but like a good pilot's always learning or training or something. Yeah. Even today, I will bring a CFI with me if I am uncomfortable on a mission. And that is great insurance for somebody who needs to get somewhere.
Now, we're sort of the end of our hour, and we'll be closing up here shortly. And I want to kind of cover maybe one or two topics. First of all, thanks for being on. I really appreciate it. It was fun hanging out with you in St. Joe back in February. It was great talking to you this morning and then today. You do own a Cirrus, right?
I do.
We're going to get into this. And you do own a Tesla. And we know we can make fun of Tesla owners. That's fine. But yet, we can also, as aviators, make fun of Cirrus pilots. So let me ask you this. Let me put it this way. We're not going to make fun of you here, but why do you think there's so much grief in aviation about Cirrus pilots?
I mean, in my opinion, it's a lot like, this was before my time. We've all heard of the doctor killers, right? What plane was that? Was it the Bonanza or the V-tail or whatever, right? I don't remember which plane it is, but I think it's because it's a nice aircraft, and you will get a lot of people that have the income to dive right into that plane, and they learn in that, they fly only that, and then we of course we see the accidents, right? It's a big plane, it's a very fast plane, and it can get away from you quickly. And so just like the whatever plane that was that they called the doctor killer, you've got people flying these things that maybe have not.
It was a V-tail Bonanza.
That's it. Yeah. So in a similar situation, you've got people who jumped right into that didn't learn to fly the way that a lot of us do, which is starting in a rickety old like whatever it was.
172.
Yeah. And just work your way up and get the hours to where you really do appreciate and respect the horsepower, and you've got enough experience to handle it. And so I think my opinion is that's where it comes from. I love the aircraft. It is very nice. It's wonderful. It's fast. It's got what I call the wife insurance policy, which is, the parachute that makes her feel better about it. At the end of the day, a lot of us know that if we have control of the aircraft, we're probably still going to try to land it, right? Especially here in the Midwest, there's an interstate and a cornfield, within an eye shot of everywhere. But again, it is just the perception of that safety. But I think that's where that comes from. And I still get aggravated at other pilots too.
Right. As we talked about this morning, it's like the Cirrus pilots learn on a Cirrus with all the automation, and they don't get to learn on a plane with 1940s tech, which would be kind of a 172 or,
Yeah, that's the key. You've summed up everything I just said. It's right. It is important, I think, to have that variety in training.
Yeah. You start from something basic and then you work from there. You can always add automation, but if you don't have any automation, you can't. I don't know. It's like kind of have to learn from here. Having said that, with the Cirrus, there was a Cirrus that came down here in St. Louis about a year ago. Mm-hmm. We saw it on the news. And of course, everyone in the St. Louis community, you pop the app open, you go to the website, Flight Radar 24. What's the call? Which registration? Who's got the plane? And then you go to the Facebook group for St. Louis, and then we saw this, and I'm not going to call the person out here, but there was this picture, which I kind of like, it's burned into my head. It's this guy that we know in the group and the pilot who was also flying. They're like co-pilots in the plane, and they're sitting on the curb with an ambulance and the firefighters and behind them. And they have this sheepish look on his face. And I was like, what is that look? The look is, yeah, that was us. But the look is also, we think it's fuel starvation, but it's also, we're alive.
Yeah.
How often do you see a picture of a pilot or co-pilot sitting on the curb as you see firefighters taking care of their plane in the background?
Yeah, no, I mean, and parachutes aren't really exclusive to Cirrus. I mean, you can get them in a sling, you can get them in a few other things. You can STC it into a 172. I mean, the CAPS system is unique, but BRC, I think, is the name. I mean, they've got, I think it was close to 1,000 saves in their parachutes. I mean, so it is in certain conditions, in certain situations, in a dense and urban environment, your only option is a parachute if you have an option at all. Out here, though, I mean, I'm surrounded by cornfields, so it's
like you were saying this morning. You have cornfields and you have highways. It's like
everywhere.
Find some place.
I probably wouldn't attempt a night engine off landing, but I don't really fly at night either. So that's one of the times.
It's dark over there. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I bring a safety pilot, typically a CFI, if I have to fly at night. Even though I'm capable, I don't do it enough to be comfortable.
Well, we're coming up to our hour here, and that's traditionally we would like to end the podcast. Although we could just like hang out and talk for a longer time, like we talked this morning.
For sure.
Hey, Lute, thanks very much for coming on. I'm just going to ask one more question. Yeah. We've talked about a lot of topics today, but is there something you want to leave us off with? Something we didn't cover today?
I think we probably covered it all. I would just back to a few of the questions we had. It took me a long time to convince myself to take the risk of starting an aviation company. A lot of people say you can't make money in aviation. I would say that may be true in some cases in the past. I would also say a lot of people that say that probably gave up too soon or had unreasonable expectations. So if you believe in it and you are willing to take the risk, just push through it and really think it through. And also don't kind of be in an echo chamber of just talking to aviation people. Get out there and have some partners, have some people that my best partner in aviation is our CFO. He's not a pilot, doesn't own a plane, doesn't even care about aviation, but he is critical in our group because the rest of us will talk ourselves into a bad decision because we love airplanes. And so it's good to have that other person.
Yeah, you and I, when we talked this morning, I'm going to kind of add on to this, the idea that can aviation be profitable? You were saying this morning, and you brought this up, that you're a millennial, I'm a Gen Xer, and we live in this time where the world is changing over, world is changing over from the old guard, the baby boomers that ran these businesses, but then are moving those businesses on to the next generation because they're getting older and it's time for them to move on. So talk about this, kind of the last topic, talk about this kind of this once in a lifetime opportunity we have here is we have this kind of changeover.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, you mentioned earlier the timing with the aviation boom. And so, 20, 30, 40 years ago, a lot of aviators started businesses in aviation. And so now it's time for them to cash out. And this is the opportunity for anybody who is interested. You don't have to, you can start a business, but you can also buy a business. You can also partner. And some people are willing to sort of slowly hand off their business, provide you some mentorship while you take over and while you earn them out. And so this is a critical time in aviation where I think you're going to see sort of a bunch of new faces coming in, because the original group, some of the original groups, they're done. They're ready to cash out, and that's good for anybody interested, I think.
So are you open to your phone ringing from strangers?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if we could put Lute's information on the bottom again, I'm just going to kind of invite people if that's okay with you.
Yep. I did the same thing. I talked to so many people before I did it that just hours of free information.
Yeah. Lute's the kind of guy, he's smoking a cigar. He's got something in some dark substance in his glass at the cigar bar. I'll just call it the cigar bar. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think we can. Have you thought about this? Yes. So you're the kind of guy who people can come to. Let's put that link back down there. So if anyone has any questions about, like, I guess starting a flight school or like purchasing a flight school or inheriting a flight school from someone, flystj.com.
STJ. Yeah. And it's just Lute at flystj.com, LUTE at flystj.com.
And then
I remember having 4 or 5 conversations with other flight school owners that motivated me to do it. So I'm happy to help.
Yeah. So if you guys haven't, here's his email right down here. If you guys have any questions, definitely reach out to Lute. He's one of our clients. So I'm going to go ahead and put our little commercial in here. The Aviation Business Podcast is sponsored by Right Rudder Marketing in St. Louis, Missouri. We're an aviation centered marketing company helping flight schools build and grow and become more profitable and find more students. So let's train more students. Lute, and there's our phone number, 314-804-1200. Lute, thanks very much for being on our podcast today. We talked about this for some time and finally we're here. So
yep, good to see you.
Thanks. Good to see you. And then this has been the Aviation Business Podcast, and we're signing off from St. Louis. All right. See ya.